Christmas. That's it. No, I'm kidding. It's almost Christmas. And a couple of thoughts. As we're about to have a very weird Christmas. And I don't know, if your family is like ours, we're not even sure how weird it's going to be at the moment. We have plans to have a couple of people here. Okay, it's just our family. I work with my son. We run a couple of businesses, so I see him and we're intermingled at work all the time. And then there are several other people who live at my house or on the same property as me, and so the group of us are supposed to spend Christmas together. But who knows what's going to happen, because there's this stupid COVID thing in the world, and it's still trying to decide who's going to have it in a couple of days. And so as we think about that, I think we, like you, are still, if 2020's taught you anything right now, it's be ready for change. Who knows? Because who knows is going to have it. We've had a member of our household has had COVID. That was interesting. We learned nobody knows anything, and we got told 97 different things. And we had close contact with that person. We had the member of our family. I had close contact with that person and did everything wrong during the days that person was most contagious, and I didn't get COVID. And as far as I know, who knows? I didn't get any symptoms, so I never got tested, and so as far as I know, I never had it. But maybe I did have it. Maybe I'll die tomorrow. I don't know. That's how these things are. This whole thing is insane. But I think in these times, it means we get a chance to look at things like Christmas. And Christmas has mattered to me my whole life. Maybe someday I'll tell the stories as to why it mattered to me a whole lot. But one of the careers I've had in my life, one of the things about me is I was a minister or pastor, depending on your terminology. So I used to preach Christmas Eve services, and I got a lot of my degree is in theology, and I go back and I look, and I learned a couple of things early on that I still share with people that I think people ought to think about, and especially those of you who participate in this. I'm blessed that a whole lot of people who watch this are young people, and by young people I mean 20 somethings, maybe even a few who are younger than that. And some things I learned young that I'm really glad today that I knew them then, and that I think people ought to think about. Like, one of the big ones is the concept of tradition. That holidays like Christmas are very much about tradition. They're about connecting to the past and to the future and right now, and taking time to stop and think about things. I believe in God. Christmas is a spiritual holiday for me, but that's not really where I'm going to go too much here. All of the different ways people celebrate Christmas, you have an opportunity to build tradition. Maybe you come from a family with lots of tradition. I came from a family with lots of tradition, and some of the traditions that go on in my house come from my family, and some of those things have gone back years, maybe a few of them hundreds of years. But the interesting thing about traditions in families, especially in this day and age where we don't tend to marry people who are exactly like us. Wasn't that long ago in society, not just America, but in society in general, we tended to marry people who come from the same background as us. We certainly married people of the same faith as us. Thus, we likely married people of the same ethnic background. We likely married people of the same national background, those sorts of things. But that has really gone away for the most part, certainly in America. And so things like my family, my name is French, famously French. If you look up Danton, I always liked growing up that lots of people can look their last name up in the encyclopedia, do some of you know what an encyclopedia is? I don't know, maybe you don't know anymore, but you could Google it. There you go. I'm one of the few people who can look their name up in the dictionary. Okay, I was pointed out that there's a lot less last names in the dictionary than there are in what was the encyclopedia. And there's a member of our family. We're descended from a member of the family who was famous enough and a big enough deal to end up in the dictionary as well as the encyclopedia. And that's French. We come out of a French background, but my French background grandfather married my Swedish background grandmother, who's actually, their family, if you actually look back, their family was Swedish and Norwegian, which is lots of families, and they have this fun love-hate relationship with each other. Their favorite family joke is, did you hear that Sweden got a new zoo? They put a fence around Norway. The Norwegians tell the same joke, just reverse it. It's so you have these traditions, and my grandmother loved these Scandinavian traditions and brought them into the family. So every time you have those coming together, you have a chance to pick and choose among all of these different traditions. And now our traditions also come from rural and urban, and like my wife's background is Italian. And on her dad's side, they are very Italian. The few times I've talked to my wife's aunts in New York, a lot of them are in Florida now, in either New York or Florida, they sound like Brooklyn when you talk to them on the phone. I tell you what they sound like, but I've never been good at accents. But they are everything you think of Brooklyn, New York, Italian women when they're on the phone. I just loved it. And so our family now, in our holidays, there's a lot of Italian food that happens in our holidays, which is great. I love that. My wife is very much a lasagna person for holidays. The question is going to be, what is it going to be for you? And take time to figure it out. You can start a tradition that lasts 100 years this year. And it was something my wife and I did the first year we got married. We said, we want to do these things. And then when we first had our kids, we said a few more. We went, okay, when our son was born, we went, okay, how do we add that in? What's Christmas going to be now? And so we added in a couple of more traditions, and we started them before he can remember, because that way he can never remember a Christmas without those traditions, which was really cool. I'm going to tip one to right now. So if this is going to post before Christmas. So if you're related to me and you're going to be in my house for Christmas, stop watching right now, because I don't want you to know. I'm going to add one this year. I was thinking about it, and it's interesting because I have 2 new grandsons this year, so it'll be, they won't ever know Christmas at our house without it, but it's a new one, and it's because I was listening to Mike Rowe, actually, and Mike Rowe was talking about people you remember and stuff, and then later that day I listened to a couple of pieces of music that were talking about memories and people, and that they're there forever sort of concept as long as you remember them. And it's something I wanted to add, because I haven't had very many Christmases without my dad being around. My dad passed away only a few years ago. And so one of the things I want to add on Christmas Eve, we do a series of things in our house on Christmas Eve. We have dinner, and after dinner, someplace in the evening, we do a couple of things. We always get in the car and we drive around and look at Christmas lights. It's something that we've always done. So we make a big tour. Some years we go to a New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve service at church, and sometimes we haven't. My PTSD has affected whether or not we can do that, but we do that, drive around and look at all the Christmas lights, and then we come back to here and I read the Christmas story out of the Bible, and I read The Night Before Christmas, and then we open presents, and it's not a huge surprise. Our presents always have something to do with that night for sleeping. So our kids always got pajamas, and I'd always said that what crazy things would you do if you're really rich? And I always said if I was really rich, I'd have a new pillow like every day. The feel of a brand new, I like a firm pillow, a brand new firm pillow, and I'd never been able to do that. But it's the sort of thing where it's really easy. I have a really old pillow, and people just use the same pillow on and on. So for years, we got a brand new pillow every single Christmas. But we started, as we got older and our economics improved a little bit, we bought better pillows. And so we got to where we didn't need a new pillow every Christmas. And so we've bought other bedding stuff. We've bought brand new sheets or these sorts of things. But everybody gets something that has to do with going to bed that night. And so and everybody gets to open that one gift. Everybody gets to open one gift, and the one gift will have something to do with sleeping that night. And at some point, maybe I'll tell you about our Christmas Day stuff. The one I want to add this year is, and I'm still working on the details, but I want to do something about asking everybody to tell a story about somebody that they have. Doesn't have to be a Christmas memory, it can be any memory, but I want them to share a story of somebody that isn't alive anymore. That a happy story, funny story, something a positive about for their life is a way just to keep those people alive, just to keep the impact of those people going. And so I might ask my son to tell a story about my dad or something like that. I'm gonna let everybody pick, and I'm sure I'll tell stories probably about my grandparents, especially my grandfather. My wife only met my grandfather one time before he passed away, and so obviously my kids and my grandkids had never met him, and so. And I realized my dad used to tell lots of stories about him, and now my dad's not around to tell stories about him. So it falls on me to tell stories about him. And I think that's how we carry on, and they're not gone if we keep telling those stories. And Christmas is a good time to be with family, and we can be with the family who's not there anymore either, because they made us who we are. They made us a large part of who we are. And so that's going to be the new tradition I add this year. You figure out your traditions. Don't let COVID stop your traditions.